Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashyakritam Vande Bhagavantaro Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the previous sessions, we were saying that my opinion or understanding of I may not be completely correct. The normal understanding of myself as an individual operating at different levels. At the level of the body, at the level of the mind, prana, intellect, and at the causal level. And that is why I need to inquire into this opinion that I have of myself. And all of this is primarily driven by the ego. So the ego gets associated with the various levels. So we need to inquire into the ego is the real I, or there is something more than the ego. So this is where the inquiry starts. Who am I? And we have a very structured process of doing the inquiry. And whenever we take up any topic, there are 4 features that are necessary for us to keep in mind. The first, when we try to study something, the first requirement for a person attempting to study something is whether the person is qualified to do that study. So this is called, the qualification is called adhikaritvam. Or who is the qualified person for this inquiry? That we will look into, whether I am qualified for this or I need to work on my qualifications. So we will look at the qualifications, various qualifications that are needed. And then the next feature of any study is the Vishaya or the subject matter. So here, as we have seen elaborately, the subject matter is me. So I I am the focus. In that way, this study is different from any other study that we do. Any discipline that we study, the subject matter is outside of me. So if I study physics, then it is about the physical laws pervading the creation, and that is outside of what I consider as me. I study other subjects, chemistry, mathematics, music. So music I study and I learn, but music doesn't become me. It is outside of me. That is why I am able to enjoy the music also. Because anything that is experienced, it has to be outside of me. There is an experiencer and there is something that is experienced. And all other disciplines, they are all outside of me. And this is the only study where the subject matter is myself. So here, this is the subject matter. Vishaya. In Sanskrit, we call it Vishaya. So the first one is the qualifications required for going through this study. The second is the Vishaya, which we have seen and we are all clear about. And then the third feature is what is the benefit? What is the outcome? I cannot do something without any tangible result. And even this inquiry, if I do, what will I get? So what is promised is that if I inquire into the nature of myself and I manage to know my real self, then the benefit is in terms of moksha or freedom. So that is the prayojana. Adhikari, Vishaya, Prayojana. This is true of any study that we undertake. Suppose I go to a college. So then the first thing that I look at is whether I am qualified for going to that course. Then the next is, what is the course that I want to do? And then the third is, what do I get out of doing that course? Normally it is in terms of some tangible outcome, monetary or something else. And that is the prayojana. And here it is in terms of absolute freedom. And the fourth is sambandha. Sambandha is connection. So the connection between what I want and what I am setting out to do. So I am clear that I want to know myself, and that is why I am undertaking this pursuit. or undertaking this study, this inquiry. So here the connection is definitely there. Like in any other place. See, I want to get into a certain area, and then I have to see whether this particular course will help me get into that area or work in that area. So these are the 4 features that are necessary to be considered before undertaking any study, and that is true of self-inquiry also. And here we have just seen the subject matter. You just see, I had a general idea about the subject matter. And now we will look into the qualifications needed for undertaking this study. And then we will also look into the benefits a little more. So the qualification, that is also listed out in a very structured way. Who is the person who is qualified? Because this is a very special area. And we see very clearly, it is very obvious, that not everyone is interested in this. However much you may try, you cannot pull a person for this self-inquiry, into this self-inquiry. So if you try to tell a person that this is the most important thing that one should do in one's life, then normally the response would be, there are so many other things that I have to do. Probably I'll finish it and then I'll come here. I have my job, I have my family, I have so many other items on my list. And then now I don't have the time. That is because the person is not ready for this. The person lacks the basic qualifications that are required for doing this self-inquiry. And suppose one has made this choice to enter into this study, then it means there is at least some basic qualification. So some inclination is there for this person. But it may not be perfect. So there is no perfect student. So perfect student doesn't exist. So if the student was perfect, then the person is not a student anymore. Because you are trying to inquire only because you are not perfect. So the idea in having a clear idea about this qualification is that I may be having some minimal qualifications, but still I get some clarity about what I need to work on for me to be able to assimilate this knowledge. Because this is also like any admission into any other course. Suppose you want to enter into a college. So then you look at what the college is asking for, what the course requirement is. So I may have some inclination, but still I will have to work more on becoming more qualified for the course. So here also it's the same way. What the qualifications are, we'll just look into it. So all of us have some minimal basic eligibility, but then we get clarity on what we need to work and what we need to focus on. So that is what is called adhikaritvam, the qualifications needed. The first qualification that is needed for every seeker of self-knowledge is that one should have adequate discriminating capacity. It is called viveka. So, what is this discrimination? The definition for viveka is the ability to be able to discriminate between what is real and what is unreal. So, I look at myself and then I look at what I want, my aspirations. And then I evaluate my aspirations based on whether it is the result lasts forever or is it short-lived. See, normally when you ask a person, what do you want in life? Then we have a lot of things that we want. It can be in terms of money, it can be in terms of wealth, power, status, and so many things, like wanting to travel. So all of it and more is there. But then we look at what we want and then see if the outcome, it lasts only for a short period or is it permanent. So if it is short-lived, then it is not worth it. Why? Because I will just keep continuing the same pattern. Like we saw yesterday also. Every life form. So they do, after they come into this world. So they eat, sleep, and then procreate, and in between do certain things in life, and then repeat the same sequence again and again. Whether it is a human being or it is an animal. So, this discriminating capacity is in terms of being having more clarity about whether what I'm doing is really worth doing. And also in terms of whether what I'm doing is in keeping with what I really want. So anything that I do, fundamentally what I want is the result to satisfy me in some way or the other. And satisfaction, I'm always looking for complete satisfaction. Even though I don't get it, but I'm looking for it nevertheless. So if it is in terms of money, then whether money is going to give me what I want. And we see that money can never buy happiness. Because that is what we normally tend to assume. So if I have so much money, then that will give me happiness. Everyone has a certain target in mind. But still, we find that what we are seeking is not in keeping with what we are doing. So here Viveka is in terms of really evaluating whether what I am seeking is obtained by what I am doing, or a relationship. So I want to have a relationship. So what do I expect out of a relationship? I want a fulfilling relationship, a satisfying relationship. But then do I manage to get complete satisfaction or fulfillment? Or when I have children, or do I get satisfaction, complete satisfaction from my career? So anything that I do is evaluated against this yardstick, against this benchmark. So that kind of discrimination is done on a continuous basis. So this is also called mindful living by the Buddhists. So anything that I do not unnecessarily do anything. And technically the definition is Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka, discriminating between what is real and what is unreal. And what is real is only one thing, that is the real self, that is the true self. Everything else is incidental. Is not worth the amount of importance that I give. So the most important thing, as far as I am concerned, is the truth of myself. So that is the first. So one has some clarity about this. And then gets committed to the pursuit. And then the next qualification that we need to gain is called vairagya. Vairagya, it's translated as dispassion. Viveka and Vairagya go together. The first one, the discrimination and dispassion. So they go together. And Vairagya is defined as a complete non-interest in craving or longing for anything. Not having a craving or longing for anything. So sometimes we have certain desires or certain things that we desperately cling on to, hold on to. And Vairagya is in terms of being indifferent to what I have or what I do not have. So the definition for Vairagya is Iha amutra phalabhoga viragaha. So viragaha or Vairagya, it means lack of attachment. Lack of attachment for what? Or lack of craving. For experiences either in this world or next. Because in the next world is also mentioned. Because in the Indian context. So one is convinced that there is life after death. And there are rituals in the Vedas that one can do to have a good or a certain kind of life after death, or go to different places after one dies. So it is something like tourism promotion. So here we have our own travel plans. But we can also have travel plans for after death. So here travel plans are with regard to only places on the earth. But then we can also have travel plans to go to places in different dimensions, other dimensions after we die, after we leave this body. So, Vairagya is being objective. Objective to my desires. And not desperately craving or longing for anything. So, because you are clear that whatever experience I have, I get, that is going to be limited or short-lived. And I'm tired of having experiences. I could have more experiences, but it will just keep continuing endlessly. Because as human beings, we are always craving for experiences. So some experience or the other. And the society also, it encourages to crave for experiences. So society normally encourages to dream for a certain kind of experience and then work for it and then achieve it. So here it's the complete opposite. So Vedanta says that don't dream, don't daydream. Just be grounded. Because whatever you are imagining, say any experience that we want to have, most of it is only in our own imagination. So look at the reality and be indifferent towards all kinds of experiences. So slowly when one gets into this pattern of thinking, then you become more and more withdrawn. And you are happy withdrawing yourself. So it's not forced, but it is an intelligent choice that we make. And then the third set of qualifications, it is a set of 6 qualifications. The first one is called Shama. Shama means having reasonable mastery over one's mind. Over one's thoughts, emotions, feelings. So the mind is defined as the place where you have all kinds of emotions. So emotions like happiness, sadness, fear, and anxiety, depression. So whenever you have those emotions, then the mind, that is what you call the mind. So for a person who wants to inquire into this subject, the person has to be reasonably in charge of one's emotions. Even one's own likes and dislikes. This is why we also talk about Karma Yoga. So when we are uncontrollably attracted or drawn towards something, then we are not able to focus on the pursuit. So this is with regard to having a certain mastery over the mind. And this is where meditation also helps. in being more in charge of our own mind. So it can be some fear that I have, or some anger that I have, anger towards someone. It could be anger towards someone in one's own family, anger towards the society, anger towards one's friend, what someone did to me a very long time ago. And then if I am not able to deal with that, then my mind is that much less available for the inquiry. Because my mind is completely captured by that emotion. And then fears also. Fear of so many things. See, all these things come up also when we start relaxing and then go deeper into the inquiry. So, we may not have an ideal mind, but still the process, the whole pursuit, it also throws up different aspects of the mind, which I can use as a reference point or as a mirror for me to look at myself, whether I have to deal with this issue. So having a certain amount of mastery and having an available mind, you can say having an available mind for inquiry. So this is mano nigraha, shama. And then the next qualification is having a reasonable restraint over my sense organs. So the eyes, the sense organs, and also the organs of action. The sense organs are 5 in number. So the eyes, the ears, nose, tongue and skin. So I have reasonable restraint over what I see. I avoid seeing what is not what has the capacity to disturb my state of mind. I avoid hearing things that are disturbing. And then I have a reasonable restraint over my tongue. See, today it is a fashion to call oneself a foodie. Foodie means one who enjoys good food. But as far as spiritual pursuit is concerned, being a foodie is not a very helpful quality. Because one is advised to have reasonable restraint over one's tongue. I eat only to get basic nutrition for my body to be kept alive without giving me any trouble. But if I'm always thinking about food, so what food will I have in the afternoon? So where will I go for dinner? So generally, a lot of people we find they're always planning for the next meal. So what I will have. You just keep that line of thinking to the minimum. So because you have restraint over your tongue. And then smell and touch also. Touch in terms of physical, biological needs. So whether you are able to keep it under check or it is occupying too much of your mind space. So a person who is inquiring into the nature of oneself is expected to have reasonable restraint over one's sense organs and also one's organs of action. The organs of action are speech, and then legs, hands, and then organ of excretion and reproduction. So having restraint over what one talks, how much one talks, that is also an important qualification. Just keeping on saying something uncontrollably is also not a good habit. So before I say something, I pass it through the filter of my mind and then consider whether I should say it or I need not say it. It is also called vak tapas, austerity in terms of one's speech. So in today's world, saying also can include social media. Because people have the tendency to just uncontrollably be addicted to the social media. So the mind is not available. You're not able to turn your mind inward. So you're always looking outward. So when there is no control in one's speech. And then restraint in one's own movement of the hands, legs. That's why in meditation also. So we start with the suggestion that during the period of meditation, I just sit without moving any part of my body. So that's a very important step in preparing myself for meditation. So not moving my hands, legs, and then having restraint over my organ of reproduction. So here also the physical biological need is kept in check. If one was not able to keep it, be in charge, then that obviously is going to occupy a lot of one's mind space. One is always thinking as to how to approach the opposite sex. So, a restraint over the organ of reproduction. That is a very important. In Yoga Shastra also, Patanjali. So, one of the 5 values in Yama is Brahmacharya. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Aparigraha and Brahmacharya. So Brahmacharya, total Brahmacharya, it can come at a later point. But reasonable control over one's organs of reproduction. So even if we may not have it completely, if we have it, then it's good. Even if we don't have it, then one needs to work on it. So that is with regard to Dhamma, restraint over the sense organs and organs of action. So these are all qualifications. One needs to acquire these qualifications. Otherwise, one is just wasting one's time by being distracted with so many things. And then the third qualification is Uparama or Uparati. Uparati means avoiding unnecessary activity. So generally, nowadays it's a fashion to call or look at oneself as a very busy person. So people like to call themselves busy. So I have no time. I'm always busy and I'm doing something or the other. And for self-inquiry, it is not good to be busy, too busy. Because you need the time for self-inquiry. If you're just busy doing something or the other. So restrict oneself to what needs to be done. So again it is defined as Swadharma Anushtanameva. It's an interesting definition. Just doing one's duties, what needs to be done, and then keeping the rest of the time free for inquiry. That way we will have a lot of time. But because we are always pulled in various directions and unnecessarily wasting our time. So that is why we find that we don't have any time for inquiry. So Uparama is one important requirement. And then the fourth one is in this group of 6. So first 2, Viveka, Vairagya. And then the third is a group of 6. First is Shama, restraint over the mind, mastery over the mind. And then second is Dhamma, mastery over one's sense organs and organs of action. It's called Dhamma. That is the second one. And the third is called Uparati, which is avoiding unnecessary activity. And just sticking to what needs to be done. So this is Uparati. And the fourth in this group of 6 is called Titiksha. So Titiksha means the ability to tolerate different kinds of experiences. Ability to put up without complaining. So there is one beautiful verse in Sanskrit in one of the works of Adi Shankaracharya. So it's called Viveka Chudamani. So there he defines Titiksha as Sahanam Sarva Dukkhanam Apratikara Purvakam Chinta Vilaparahitam Sat Titiksha Nigadyati. So Sahanam Sarva Dukkhanam. Any trouble that one might have, one faces that difficulty without complaining. It may be in terms of one's own external environment or what one is going through inside one's mind. It could be both internal and external. Apratikara Purvakam, without any complaint whatsoever. Just accepting my life as it is. This is what I have, this is what I deserve. So I have no complaints. In fact, if one has this, then it makes life a lot easier. Because we are always bothered about what we don't have, what we could have, what we do not have. So having that kind of tolerance is a very, very helpful quality to have. So that is Titiksha. And then it is defined also as Shitoshna Sukha Dukkhadi Sahishnati. Not complaining about the weather. So whether it's too hot, so complete acceptance of myself, of what life has given me. In fact, that frees up one's mind completely. And that complete acceptance can come only when one accepts one's own karma. One understands that I get exactly what I deserve. Nothing more, nothing less. If I don't have something, it's because I don't deserve it. Because the universal order knows exactly what I should get. At this point, I have exactly what I deserve. So that is called titiksha. So we'll stop here. We'll have a short break and then we'll come back. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Gacchate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.